Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, so today I continue my lecture on international finance topic here with the causes of exchange rate fluctuations. So as mentioned, the causes include capital movement, balance of payment, purchasing power parity theory, right, interest rate parity theory, and four-way equivalent, right? Right. Okay, next, all right. So in general, right, the exchange rate will be determined or will be at the equilibrium, right, after taking into consideration all the changes in or differential in inflation rate, changes in the interest rate, right, changes in the income level of the current accounts deficit, that is the balance of payment, that is the current account, okay, changes in the current account, and then changes in the expectations of the future exchange rate, okay, and then changes in the government control. So by taking into consideration all these factors, so we will get new value of the exchange rate. So that means those factors are influencing the equilibrium of the exchange rates. Okay. Right. So for the first one, okay, is about the capital movement. So this is the transaction which effectively switching the bank deposit from one currency to another. Okay, and then it may influenced by inflation and also interest rate. Okay, right. If we relate to the inflation, so that means changes inflation rate, right, will influence the decision makings that leads to the capital movement. Okay, so for example, a country with a lower inflation rate will lead to an appreciation of the currency. That means the currency will appreciate if the country has a lower inflation rate. And then why is that? Okay, because at that time, right, during the periods of lower inflation rate, so the price of goods and services increase at a slower rate. All right, so this will make the currency to appreciate. Okay, right. For the interest rate, right, we can relate to the exchange rate, right. Increase in the interest rate can cause the country's currency to appreciate. All right, why is that? This is because when the interest rate higher or increase, right, it will provide actually higher returns to the lenders, or it will give higher rate of return to the investors. Okay, therefore this will make the foreigner attracted to more foreign capital, and this will cause the rise in the exchange rate. All right. In other words, the exchange rate will appreciate when the interest rate is higher. Okay. Right. The next one is about balance of payment. So this is referring to the country's current account, which reflects the balance of trade and earnings on the foreign investment, that is import, export, right? So the balance of the current accounts here will influence the exchange rate as well. Okay, so we know that the balance of payment, right, or current account consists of the transactions from the export and import. Okay, so any deficit in the current account, okay, which is due to what? So when is it the deficit in current accounts happen or occur? This is when the spending on import is more than export. So this will make the current account deficit, and vice versa, where the current account can also be in a surplus, right, where the export is more than import. So what happens if the current account is a deficit, right? and also surplus. Okay, if there is a deficit in the current account, which is import is more than export, so that means it will lead to, or it will cause depreciations of currency. Okay, and then if there is a surplus in the current account where the export is more than import, okay, it will cause appreciation in its currency. Okay, right. Then, so this is what I mentioned just now, right? The government control also play important role here, or also crucial in what is it, influencing the exchange rate fluctuations. Okay, such as maybe government involved directly through the for the imposing foreign exchange barriers. Alright, that will make the import and export costly. Yeah, and then imposing foreign trade barriers. And then intervening in foreign exchange market. Okay, so affecting macro variables such as, so this will affect the macro variable such as inflation, interest rate, and also the income level. Okay, right. And then another thing that, or factors that that will influence the exchange rate, okay, is the public debt. Right, public debt. So the country with large public deficit and also debt here are less attractive to foreign investors. Why is that? Because large debts, okay, could result in higher inflation and lower currency value. Okay, right. If there is a large debt, it may prove worrisome, okay, or make the foreigner worry, okay, to invest in that country, okay, if they believe that the country's risk, all right, defaulting on its obligation, right? So there is high possibility of the country not to pay its debts. So foreigner will be less willing to own securities denominated in that currency if the risk of default is great or greater. So because of this, right, the country debt rating, which is provided by, like in our country, by rating agency Malaysia, right? Malaysia Accounting Rating Agency, RAM, okay, is very important. Okay, so that rating will be the crucial or important determinant or factor of its exchange rate. So may influence the exchange rate. So that is about public debt and that may influence the exchange rate. All right, another thing is the political stability and economic performance. Right, in this case, right, the foreign investors prefer politically stable countries with a strong economic performance. Okay, right, so any political instability or turmoil, right, can cause the movement of capital to more unstable currencies, right, or will cause a movement of capital to more, what is it, unstable currency, as there will be a loss confidence in the currency concept. Okay, so this political turmoil will make the foreigner lose confidence of the country's currency. Okay, right. Next, we want to see how does um, inflation rate influence the exchange rates. So by applying the purchasing power parity theories in detail in this case, right? So what is the PPT? PPT is actually purchasing power parity theory, right? So this is the idea of the purchasing power parity. This is the idea where the exchange rate adjusts to keep the purchasing power constant among currencies. So it implies that the exchange rate between two currency, okay, depends on the relative inflation rate within those countries. Okay, and it shows that the country with the higher inflation rate, right, and according to PPP, right, PPPT here, that is theory. It shows that the country with the higher inflation rate will be subject to depreciations of its currency. Okay, so PPP tells us that the exchange rate will rise if the inflation rate in the country is lower than in other countries. Okay, right, and then for the PPP here, right? So there is a formula, right? So that means the PPP theory can be used to forecast or to estimate the expected future spot rate, or to predict the exchange rate of the foreign country. So to estimate the expected future spot rate under PPPT, right? So we have to make use of this formula. Okay, so the formula is S1 divided by S0 equals to 1 plus HC divided by 1 plus HB. So what is S1? S1 is the expected future spot rate. So this is what we want to calculate. Okay, right. And then we take into consideration the current rate, which is the current spot rate of the two currencies. Okay, that means the foreign currencies. And then HC is the inflation rate in a foreign country. Okay, and then HB is the inflation rate in a country for which the spot is quoted, right? That is the base country's inflation rate. Okay, so we use the PPP to predict the future spot rate, okay, or the expected spot rate. Okay, um, okay. So how are we going to apply this formula? So I think you can look at this example, right? So this example stated that there is an item that costs 3,000 ring, $3,000 in the US. Assume that the sterling and the US dollar are at PPP equilibrium at the current spot rate, okay, of $1.5 uh, per pound. That is, this is the sterling price, okay, times current spot rate of 150 equals to dollar price. So that is how we get the spot rate or this price or exchange rate. Now the spot rate, okay, is the rate which currency can be exchanged today. So that the spot rate is the current currency, okay, the current rate. Right now, if we are not applying the PPP, so the expected exchange rate or the expected currency here, right, will be determined using this method. Right, you will take into consideration the inflation rate here, right, the cost of item now, okay, 3,000 in US, right, $3,000. But if there is an expected what inflation rate 5%, right? The estimated inflation in US is 5%, right? That means in 1 year per year, so right, the estimated inflation 5% per year. So in 1 year, that means it's going to be the price going to be $3,150. Okay, right. And then if you look at the UK market for the same item, the price or the item which costs you $3,000, which is actually equals to £2,000 using this rate. Right, you convert this 3,000 into pound, then you will get £2,000. And let's say the expected inflation rate in the UK is 3% per year. So that means in 1 year's time, All right, in 1 year time, the price of this particular item, the same item, is going to be 2,060 pounds. Okay, so make use of this new price, okay, to determine the expected spot rate, all right, after taking into consideration the inflation rate, right? So the exchange rate is going to be like this, which is the $3,150 simply divide by 2,060 pounds, then you get the exchange rate for, right, 1.5291 dollar per pound. Okay, just per UK. So UK is the base currency, right? Okay, if the US is the base currency, that means you will do the other way around, and the currency will be different, lah. Okay, right. Okay, if we apply the PPP formula, right? This one, right? So you take the figure. So S1, we know this is what we want to find out. Okay, and you divide by um, 1.5. This is the spot rate. Okay, current spot rate. Okay, $4 per pound, and then equals to 1 plus what is it? HC, that is the inflation rate in the foreign country, that is in US, 5%, and then you divide by 1 plus inflation rate in the base currency, which is in the UK, 3%. Okay, therefore you can get the expected future spot rate is what is it? $1.5291. So what does it mean? So this is the US dollar per pound. Okay, so currently the US dollar per pound is $1.5 per pound. But here now it is expected that, okay, the US dollar is going to be $1.5291 per pound. So it becomes higher. So what does it mean? That means, right, the US dollar will be depreciated because you have to pay more dollar in order to get 1 pound, right? Okay, you will have to pay one more dollar, right, for 1 pound. So that means US dollar will be depreciated in 1 year time. Why is that? So now we want to relate to inflation rate. So this is because the inflation rate in the UK is expected to be higher than inflation rate in the inflation rate in the US, right, is expected to be higher than inflation rate in the UK. So that means the higher the inflation rate, that will be the lower the currency rate, right? In other words, the currency will be depreciated. In this case, US will be depreciated against the pound in 1 year time. Okay. Right, and then now the next slide is another example. How are we going um, to calculate, okay, the expected spot rate? Okay, we take this example. All right, hold on. Right, so I take this example. Okay, I copy here, and then I go to this. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. All right. Okay, so this is the example here, right? So how are we going to answer this one? So you are given the information. Okay, so that is the dollar and the Alright. So the dollar and sterling are currently trading at 1.72 dollar per pound. So that means, right? So in this case, right, if we um, start our answer, that means dollar. Okay, sorry, let me just go. So dollar against pound. Okay, so that is 1.72 per or equals to, I don't know. So that means okay, equals to 1 pound. Okay, right, and then so this is the spot. Okay, current spot rate. Okay, then it is given that the inflation rate in the US is expected to grow at 3% per annum. So that means the expected inflation rate, okay, in US, okay, which is the foreign country, expected to be 3%, okay, per year or per annum. But in the UK, right, the expected inflation rate, okay, expected inflation rate, right, which is US and then UK, which is the base, right, equals to 4%. Okay, so predict the future spot rate in a year's time, maknanya in 1 year, right? So in a year's time, so here is how are we going to do that? Okay, right. So it is shown here, right? That is S1, okay, equal divided by S0 equals to 1 plus HUS divided by 1 plus inflation rate in this case, which is UK. So we just substitute S1. So what is the currency? Currency is dollar 172 equals to 1 plus 0.03, okay, and divide by 1 plus 0.04. Then you akan dapat S equals to S1 equals to 1.703. Right. So you can see that the US dollar currently is this one, right? Okay, 1.72. Now you expect that this currency is going to be 1.7035. So that means this currency is going to be what? Going to be appreciated. Okay, the US dollar, right, is going to be appreciated. Okay, right, in 1 year's time. Why is that? Alright, to relate the inflation, so because of what? The inflation rate in the US is expected to be what? Lower, right? In lower than in the UK. Alright, so that is the way we, or that is how we apply the PPP. So this is for 1 year's time, right? Okay, maknanya next year. If it's today this year, then next year what's going to happen in the exchange rate? So that means we can use this PPP theory to predict or to estimate the exchange rates. Okay, right. In another example, right? I do have another example. Okay. you can refer to this one. Okay, let's say I give you another information. Okay, another information, let's say, right? So if you have the textbook, right, you can refer to the textbook actually. But then, right, let me show you the information straight away. Okay, hold on. Okay, so here, right, the example. So suppose now, let's say, suppose, okay, the Japanese exchange rate is currently 105 yen, right, per dollar. So that means currently, right, Japanese exchange rate, so that means yen, okay, is against dollar, okay, is actually equals to yen 105 equals to $1. Okay, so this is actually SO. Okay, right, and then the inflation rate in Japan over the next 3 years, right? So here stated that the inflation, okay, rate in Japan, okay, over the next 3 years, okay, over the next 3 years will be, okay, 2% per year. Okay, whereas in US, right, in the US, okay, inflation rate, the inflation rate, okay, will be 6% per year. Okay, so based on the relative PPP, that means using PPP, right? What will the exchange rate be in 3 years? So then the question is, right? Question is, what will the exchange rate be in 3 years, right? In 3 years. Okay, so that is the question. So the question is asking you for the next 3 years, what is going to happen? Tadi kita buat example for the next year, for 1 year, after 1 year, what is the expected exchange rate, okay, for yen. Now, how are we going to do that? So that means, okay, we still using the same what? We're still using the same formula, okay. Okay, what is the formula? Okay, future expected spot rate divided by current spot rate, you divide, equals to 1 plus inflation rate, that is H, in this case Japan, right? And then you divide by 1 plus, what is it? Inflation rate in this case US. Okay, but the question is asking you for 3 years time. Okay, in 3 years time, what will happen? Then you can simply put here for the next 3 years to the power of 3. Okay, or actually, if you look at the textbook, right, you can, if you rearrange this formula to find out S1 is actually equals to S0 and you multiply by 1, okay, plus inflation rate in Japan minus inflation rate in US, and then you put the whole thing here in the bracket to the power of 3. So if you rearrange the formula, if you don't want to rearrange, so it's up to you which one you want to use, okay? Right, so in that case, if you are using this one, so straight away you can determine what? SO, this is the SO, right? Like I said just now, this is the current exchange rate, okay, which is yen 105, and then you multiply by, just follow the formula, 1 plus, what is it? Inflation rate in Japan, which is 2%, right? Or maybe you can put 0.02, it's up to you. Okay, I put here 2% minus 6%, right? And then 1 minus negative here, so don't forget, my 2 minus 4 will be negative 4, right? Then 1 minus 4, this is not 4 line, you convert 0.04, right? And then to the power of 3, okay? Then you will get, okay, which is yen 92.9, okay, per dollar. Alright, or if you want to make use of this, okay, you want to make use of the first formula just now, that is what? S1, okay, equals to S0, right, multiply by 1 plus inflation HJ divided by 1 plus inflation US, okay, and don't forget to the power of 3 here. Then put into the formula, then you will get lebih kurang more or less the same, which is in this case 92.9, that is kalau kita approximate kan round off figure, it's 93, okay. Right. Okay, so this is PPP. Okay. Right. Next. Okay, we go to the next slide. Right, go to the next slide, which is about IRPT. Okay, hold on.